Let's talk to a principal who has walked through litigation at the highest level.
This episode of the Christian Principles Podcast is brought to you by the Herzog Foundation. And as always, the thoughts and opinions expressed within this episode are those of your hosts and not necessarily of the Herzog Foundation. Welcome to the Christian Principles Podcast. I'm Matt George.
And I'm Mark Zockoll, and tonight we are blessed and excited. We pitched this a little bit ago. We tickled this a little bit ago. We let you know this was coming a little bit ago. We're so blessed and excited to have with us Ms. Claire Dant. Ms. Dant, thank you so much for coming on tonight and being a expert witness for us. Expert testimony coming on tonight. I know, we're setting you up real big. I know you're
I was
scared of
going
that,
to say, I'm
but
not sure how much of an expert I am, but experience, yes.
there we go. More experience than most of us, and that's what we're looking for. So, Ms. Dant, would you do us a favor and go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners, kind of who you are, maybe even as a person, then as an educator, as the Christian school principal there at Bethel Christian Academy?
Sure. As you know, we all have lots of different roles in our lives. So I am a wife of 40 some years. We're going
Oh.
on 48 years of marriage. So that's a blessing. I have 3 children, all grown.
Mhm.
One of my children actually works at our school. So she's been working there teaching middle school English for a long time.
That was going to be my
Um,
question for you. Does one of them work for you? Because that usually tends to seem, we usually seem that happens, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes, it does happen. So I've been at Bethel Christian Academy for almost 25 years or so. But before that, I had a whole experience with homeschooling.
Oh.
So I have been interested in education since I was in high school, really, but didn't pursue it until later in life, got married young, all of that, and then decided to homeschool my children. So I homeschooled them from kindergarten through high school, and then I was out of children, and I had to look for some other children. And
Lots
so
more children.
yes, yes, and so the Lord said, "Well, you need to go back to school, and you need to, move forward. I have things for you to do." So, I finished up my degree, my master's degree, and, found a place, really a home, at Bethel Christian Academy some 25 years ago.
Wow, what a blessing. Now, how long has BCA been doing what BCA does there in Savage, Maryland?
Just about 41 years.
That's exciting. Mm.
Yeah, we started very, very small with like 28 students, and now we're at about 280 students.
Wow. Now,
Sure.
some COVID movement in that? What
A
has been
lot,
BCA's movement throughout COVID and whatnot?
no, lots of COVID movement. So, when COVID hit, everyone was afraid to come to school. And so, of
Mm.
course, we went remote. We were very blessed to successfully navigate that.
Uh-huh.
And then the next fall, so that March, we were remote for basically everybody. And then the next fall, we said, we really need to be back in school, but some people still were afraid. So we went hybrid for our older kids.
Mm-hmm.
Nightmare.
Oh.
Having the teachers teach the few that were in person and all the ones that were online at the same time
Uh,
was certainly a challenge. A number of our families were not comfortable with either of those options, so we opened a homeschool. Uh, I had been involved in homeschooling for a bunch of years, and so I put that hat back on and we did some homeschooling, had about 50 families opt to homeschool with our oversight during that time,
uh,
which worked out really well because then the following fall, when we went all in person, they said, "We're ready to come back to actual school. We're done with this homeschooling." And so we were able to keep some families in our community because of
mhm.
that. So that was a blessing.
Wow,
Awesome.
that is exciting. So, would you say that you saw, as so many did, COVID growth, especially following it?
No,
Okay.
no, that was actually quite surprising for us.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's because of where we're located. Um, we thought we would see more COVID growth, but we're in Howard County.
Mm-hmm.
And Howard County has a reputation for having excellent schools, and they were doing remote still when we were in person. And we did not see a huge shift of people coming to us
Hmm.
during that time.
Interesting. That is interesting. You may be one of the first that I've spoken with that looks back on that time and says, actually, we didn't see the COVID blossom or whatever people are calling it now. Like we didn't see that. I mean, we're past it, of course, with the COVID boom and then the COVID shrink. If the schools, just vacuumed up whoever wanted to come versus were really choosy with all those stories. I'm sure you've heard, and we've
Yep.
heard plenty now. So it's interesting. That's an interesting place to be. Well, crazy. Okay.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
we had to navigate a huge loss in enrollment, a huge drop.
Wow.
And
Wow.
think about when that was happening. So I know
Mm-hmm.
we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but in just prior to that, we already had experienced loss due to the whole boost fiasco.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was an additional loss.
Oof.
Um, Praise God that we have a very supportive board, a very supportive pastor.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't furlough anybody. We figured
Wow.
out how to make it work and we hung in there.
Wow. 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 Well, we absolutely are coming to you tonight, sitting at the feet of Gamaliel this evening because we
Ah,
want to learn more about what you just referenced there. And we can appreciate we don't want to dive into any more specifics that are necessary. And we don't have an audience that really has the time to go look up the court case and whatnot. But we're thankful that you are willing to walk through with us from the vantage point of a Christian school principal, and for us a Christian school principal in Maryland, who has been the building leader during a time of significant litigation for the school. And that is where we come to you and we say we're very much interested in your retelling of God's blessings, God's growth of you and the school during that time. Before we get there, before we go any further, we should probably pause here and hear from our partners at the
okay.
Herzog Foundation. Yeah, at the Herzog Foundation, and then at Grade Link Student Information Systems.
This episode is brought to you by our partners at the Herzog Foundation, whose mission aligns beautifully with ours to advance and support Christ-centered education. The Herzog Foundation exists to catalyze excellence in Christian schools, helping more children experience academic rigor, biblical truth, and strong moral character, all in a safe and nurturing environment. Whether through teacher training, principal development, or strategic media efforts, the Herzog Foundation is committed to helping you, the Christian school leader, fulfill your calling with excellence. Their vision is bold but clear, a national renaissance in Christian education that impacts culture for generations. At the Christian Principles Podcast, we're proud to stand with the Herzog Foundation in that mission. Learn more at herzogfoundation.com. Together, we're building schools and futures on the rock of Christ. And as always, tell them that the fellas here at the Christian Principles Podcast sent you their way.
If your school needs a management system that's as practical as it is affordable, GradeLink is the way to go. It's reliable, straightforward, and it won't overwhelm you with complexity or cost. Just go to cpp.gradelink.com to see how it can make your school's life easier. All right. Well, as Miss Dant was introducing herself, she introduced the boost fiasco. And that's what we're going to kind of focus in on tonight with it. For those of you not in Maryland, you should understand that Maryland doesn't have a lot of school choice options, but one that did kind of sneak in there and gave schools a little bit of an option was the Boost program that at the beginning, if I understand it correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, had very little, if no strings attached to it. But then there came a point in time where significant strings started getting attached. And I think that's where your school kind of got involved in working with the state against with the Boost program. So I may have butchered that terribly in the introduction, but you want to kind of walk us through what BCA's part was in that?
Sure. I wish I could remember what BOOST actually stands for,
I'll
but
look
I
it up.
don't.
No worries.
Yeah, if you can look that up. So the idea is to provide the means for private education for low-income families. And so it was somewhat related to the Maryland non-public school textbook program, if any of the schools are familiar with that, the Aging Schools program, all of those funding programs for non-public schools. Boost came in somehow under that same umbrella. And as a mission-based Christian school wanting to reach kids and families with the gospel, we said, well, we're involved in the textbook program. We'll go ahead and apply for the Boost program. We'll see, what that will do for us. And I don't remember precisely what year. It was kind of back in 2015 or so, our first involvement with them. And we had up to 20 kids coming to our school on the Boost program, seemingly doing well. They were happy. We were happy. Things were moving along. And then, as you say, strings began to be attached. So I'm not sure if that was because of changes in the General Assembly or changes of personnel I don't know. But all of a sudden we had to agree to more things. But it was still doable. We had to agree not to discriminate. Well, we don't discriminate, so we were good with that. We had to agree not to discriminate against anybody, basically for anything, in admissions. And so you could look at students, test them, see if they could manage in the program, accept them and move forward, and that was what we did. So we had it, one couple of years we had up to 20 kids, and we were moving along. And then the strings began to be, well, we specifically don't want you to discriminate against students who may have a different sexual orientation than what you believe in. And we're like, okay, well, that's cool because we're not discriminating against anyone anyway. And so it was a non-issue. It's also was a non-issue because we don't have a high school. So preschool through middle school, you're not really dealing with a whole lot of sexual orientation things anyway. We had no concerns.
If I may, really quick, Miss Dan, because you're motoring through the nuggets, and I love the nuggets of the conversation even. But first up, the Boost is the broadening options and opportunities for students. So, like you said, broadening options and opportunities for students today scholarship program, which that's what our Christian schools would like to do for as hopefully all schools would do that. You also mentioned that it was somewhat attached, somewhat in the same line as the textbook program. And again, for those who aren't in Maryland or for those who do know some of Maryland's background, the textbook program was one of the few state-funded grants available to schools, non-public schools. There were, and there are, and there grew to be more, as of course you're even saying now, strings that were attached to that, specifically wording about what had to be in someone's handbook, which I know you're going to say that in a little bit, concerning admissions, concerning concerning their anti-discrimination policies. There, of course, were schools and are schools that would take a side of with shekels come shackles. There are schools, as you're evidencing, that were, hey, we've looked over it, we've prayed over it, we don't see an issue with it. We say this is something that our leadership is going to go ahead and take a hold of, because as we read this, we do not see an issue with our mission not being able to align with this. The only question I would have for you, that I hate cutting you off to throw in Boost there, but while I have you stop for a second, you made the note that even when the changes started to become about sexual orientation, for you at that point, was it a matter of we really don't expect that to occur in our admissions process, or were you at a point where you would say, if we had, and I'll to phrase it somehow, I would say if we had a young man who wanted to present as a young woman who made it through the testing at our school, we would have accepted him. Is that where BCA was, or is that just something that wasn't really on your radar because at that point it wasn't even considered?
That wasn't on our radar for a couple reasons. The strings had yet to mention gender identity.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we weren't even talking about any of that.
Yeah.
We had a process that we went through where, we have a code of conduct. We expect everybody to do this. If you come here, you need to understand this is the environment you're coming into. So we didn't feel like there was going to be any issues. We had not had any issues. And so it wasn't on our radar that there would be a problem at all.
Mhm.
Okay.
So we went ahead and applied and signed that we wouldn't discriminate against anybody in admissions and, went our merry way. So over the course of a couple of years, we got in scholarship funding, $106,000 something. So a fair amount of money. They don't pay full tuition, so Boost doesn't cover full tuition. It covers up to, I think it was $4,000 at that time. And so it was still a good amount of money and kids coming in. Not an issue until I think it was 2017.
Okay.
And there was a school someplace who apparently discriminated against somebody in admissions. Okay. And so when a complaint was filed, that raised everybody's awareness, and MSDE and the state and whoever administered the program, that, oh no, now we better check all of these Christian schools because they probably do the same thing.
Evil places, yes.
And so then it was not just you have to sign the agreement, it's now you have to prove it. How are you going to prove it? You're going to prove it by
Okay.
giving us a copy of your handbook. And so we're going to look at your handbook and we're going to determine if you are discriminatory based on your school policies. And so, we complied because we weren't discriminatory. So we gave them our handbook. Now, in our handbook, our anti-discrimination policy said nothing about sexual anything. It basically was the federal statement having to do with anti-discrimination, race, ethnicity, all of that sort of thing, and that was in our handbook. We did have policies in our handbook that said there shouldn't be any relationships happening between students. Now, keep in mind, we only go to 8th grade. And, there shouldn't be pornography, and there shouldn't be profanity, and there shouldn't be all kinds of things that are unbiblical. And so those things were in our handbook. And so we had a statement of faith in our handbook. Our statement of faith indicated that we believe that God created men and women, and that marriage was between men and women. So that was in our statement of faith, had nothing to do with our admissions policy. And so the state of Maryland said, well, you are clearly discriminatory.
Yep. There it is.
Got 'em.
Because you believe this. And they said that to us and to many schools
Sure, yeah.
in the program. And so they sent out letters saying, you are discriminatory and therefore you cannot be in this program anymore. And we were like, well, that's unfortunate because we're not discriminatory and we've got all these kids here on this program and now they've got to scramble. They announced this right as school was starting.
Of course. Yeah.
So now they have to scramble and find someplace to go where they can use their boost money because they can't use it at our school. And so now we're in the, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Letters are coming out saying you can't be in the program. But the straw that broke the camel's back was the letter that said, and now you have to pay us back the $106,000 that you have used over the past 2 years to educate students.
Those letters, were they 1 week, second week, or was it a little bit longer? Do you remember
It
if
was
it was
a
into
little
the
bit
school year?
longer, but it wasn't
Okay.
a long time.
Gotcha. But
And
you
they
were
were
not
saying,
expecting it.
and they offered us options. We will
how
let you
kind.
stay in the program and not pay the money back if you renege on your discriminatory policies and beliefs and statements in your handbook and change the wording in your handbook to say the things we want your handbook to say.
Which that right there, just if the place is so evil that you cannot participate before, but one sentence difference makes the entire place cogent thereafter.
Yes.
How is that not seen as ludicrous?
Mhm.
And
Well,
completely,
the thing
it's
that
not
was
it's not
frustrating
that it's
as
not
well
safe.
was there were no complaints against our school.
No,
There were no complaints against most of the schools
yeah,
that received these letters saying, you're discriminatory and you can't do this. But it's scary.
oh, of
You
course,
know, you get this official notification that, you don't qualify. And not only that, you have to pay this money back by this time,
Mhm.
unless you change what your handbook says and, you know, change what you believe. And that was the real sticking point was, no.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're calling for you to change fundamentally who you are at that point.
Yes.
And it just makes me, expect this from any other country, right? Like, this is a country founded on the diversity of belief and the freedom of choice
Religion?
in belief
Yes.
and religion, and yet here it is in our own front yard, that we're getting these kind of things passed through both state and uh,
Yeah,
on the federal level, I'm sure as well. But
a literal
like, yeah,
cease
you
and
just don't
desist.
like you don't expect that kind of thing, and you look at it like our response. If our response is, "Oh, how dare you," not be willing to accept people. Like, what are you doing? You're not accepting of our beliefs. Like,
Mm.
this is a two-way street here, folks.
It's also an a scary, scary to relative, but it's also, we fought through 649, House Bill 649 that made it out of the House into the Senate this year, and these terms and the way this is being discussed, and even the whole a different school had apparently some sort of discrimination issue, which of course that's where 649 originally came from, which I believe it was as he related it was the executive director of CRC's son who attended a school, and then he got upset because there wasn't a grievance procedure in place enough for them to be people to, so literally as CRC said in those readings, the Civil Rights Commission is looking to expand its authority
Right.
into the education.
Yeah.
His words in that testimony given when the bill was first read, and here is, I mean, that it's just wording which was seeing that wording again, but we saw it this legislative cycle again, and it
Mhm.
wasn't about money this time. In fact, of course, 649 carved out, it wasn't just schools that accepted money, it was all non-public schools. Again, it's just we see it there, we see it again,
Right.
but
At least with Boost, a lot of schools decided, well, we're just going to now opt out. We're just not going to deal with it because we don't want to have to prove anything to, these people, and it's not worth it to us. And so they just opted out. Schools paid back their money. A bunch of schools,
gotcha.
went ahead and paid back their money. But for us, that was a huge sticking point. We're like, number one, we haven't done anything wrong.
Yes.
Number two, this is our religious freedom. Number three, it is inappropriate for them to asking us to be paying them back, to the tune of $106,000. So no.
Especially if and again, we have to trust that Ms. Dance and the board there and the pastor there at Bethel's Assembly, we have to trust that they prayerfully read over the language and they were dutifully, ethically pursuing their mission according to the language that they saw in the bill and they saw in their handbook, and said, yes, we can coalesce with what was being said. And it's not my fault that a couple years down the line you changed the expectation and now you want
They
back
changed
pay
it.
for and now you want back pay for when it was that we even, assuming we did something wrong. It wasn't 2-3 years ago we did something wrong when the language hadn't changed. Then why do you want the money back from that point?
Right.
And it
Even
wasn't
that doesn't
even
make
that the
sense.
language changed. It's just that they
Their
decided
interpretation of
you
it.
had to prove that what you had
Well, sure.
attested to was correct. Now they've changed the language since then. And now all of the things you're supposed to agree to have to do with not only admissions, but also in practice. So
Mm-hmm.
your policy that says once they're here, they have to abide by our rules like everybody else, that doesn't fly anymore either.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, because they tried to close up what they perceived as a loophole,
Yep.
that we would accept kids, but then we would somehow mistreat them um, by making them do what everybody else is being expected to do.
Which again was a part of 649 in so much that it was said from the floor, yes, these schools can hold those beliefs in theology, but practically speaking, they
You can't.
may not practice them upon these protected classes. You can believe that a person is a man or woman from biological birth sex. However, you cannot apply that in any way outside of your belief of it. That's exactly what was being called for by the CRC in 649. So again, we know what you're saying. We haven't seen the end of it. Of course, we saw it come up
No,
again
we
recently.
haven't,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
So we decided, it's interesting. We did not wait for them to try to take legal action against us for refusing to pay.
Mhm.
We went on the offensive,
Mhm.
and fortunately, we were very blessed by the organization Alliance Defending Freedom
Mhm.
um, and the ACSI leadership that contacted us and said, hey,
Yeah.
we're looking for a school to stand up.
Mhm.
And so ADF in particular wanted to know, they said, we will, we'll be your lawyers. We'll do whatever you need if you want to take a stand against us. And so
Mm.
we did not wait to be on the defensive. We sued the state.
Wow. Now, can I just pause and ask, I'm sure you were in those discussions. I'm sure, it was board and pastor and at least you were being read into them if you weren't seeing them themselves. What
Yes.
was your what was your heart at that moment? What was your mind? Was it fear? Was it God has my back, we're gonna be absolutely fine? Where were you? If I can ask you to be, raw with us, where were you in some of that thought?
I tend to be a very principled person.
Mhm.
And so even though it was like, do I want to do this? No, I don't want to do this.
Mhm.
And I don't know what it's going to entail. And I don't know how difficult it's going to be. But I do know that we can't cave.
There we
Mm.
go. Yeah. 10 toes
Amen.
on the line. Stand up.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, but for you, it was a pretty early on understanding, eh, even though it's not going to be my favorite, we're going to walk through this, and God will
Yes.
have us.
Yes.
All
And I
right.
was actually very pleased that our board was unanimously in agreement with that as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Awesome.
Um, that we were willing to stand with others or not
Mm-hmm.
because we felt like it was that important in regard to who we are before our God.
Now, did anybody else stand with you? Was there another Christian school that had received one of those letters in Maryland that actually said, you know what? As BCA stood, we will stand too?
I wish I could say yes, but
Oh,
Mm.
mm,
no.
gotcha. Okay.
No,
Well,
we were alone. Our hope was, with ADF's help, our hope was that whatever we accomplished would be able to spill over and help other Christian schools
mm-hmm.
in the future. Um, Unfortunately, that was not the case
Uh,
because it was not like a class action type thing. This applies to
yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
It was, we're not paying the money back.
It's that one.
And,
Yeah.
we're suing you for violating our religious freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And the outcome will affect us.
Yeah.
It wouldn't really
Absolutely.
affect anybody else. And it didn't really affect anything else because they didn't change the policy requiring people to give them their handbook with their wording.
Hey, I hate to break up a very riveting conversation, but
Yeah.
we're getting to that time where we need to wrap up this episode, and you'll have to wait around to finish this conversation, find out how it all ends.
Yeah. On the
What a
next
wonderful
time.
cliffhanger, right?
At least you don't have to wait too long because it's coming out. It's coming out just in a couple days. We don't
Couple days,
go
couple
months
days.
between podcasts. You know us. You're Mondays and Thursdays, 6 a.m. You get the good stuff. So just come back. Just wait a couple days. Munch on this one. Listen to it again. But yeah, go ahead, Matt.
So let's hit a pause button here, and we'll come back to our conversation with Miss Dant and conclusion of that litigation that BCA had. So we're going to pause it, and we're going to do our Christian Administrator Spotlight, and then we will get back to it next time.
Our Christian Administrator Spotlight today goes out to Mr. Nathan Bell of Lighthouse Christian Academy. Now, Matt, Lighthouse Christian Academy, you wouldn't believe it. It reminds me so much of Seaside Christian Academy in Ocean City, Maryland, because you're on Route 50, and then just one, it was not a stoplight. In this case, it's an exit, but you take an exit, and then it's an exit right in front of a very famous place. So right before you get on the Bay Bridge, westbound, you take the last exit in Kent Island, you go up one street and it's to the left, and then Safe Harbor Presbyterian Church and Lighthouse Christian Academy opens up before you. Just mere moments. Throw a rock and hit, the modern marvel, which is the Bay Bridge. And there is Lighthouse Christian Academy. And Mr. Nathan Bell serves there as he is the head of school at Lighthouse Christian Academy. A couple of deans under him. We'll come to find out and talk more about later. But we're going to go ahead and pray tonight for Mr. Nathan Bell. He's been at Lighthouse now just for a short time. In fact, he just moved recently from above Baltimore, where he was commuting from every day, against the flow of traffic, but still commuting every day. He's just moved recently to the island. So he's officially a fellow Eastern Shoreman.
There we go.
Only very recently, though. So I'll go ahead and pray for you now, Mr. Bell. I'll go ahead and pray for you now, Mr. Bell. Father in heaven, I thank you so much for Nathan Bell. I thank you for his newness there at Lighthouse Christian Academy. I thank you for the academy there on its own. I thank you for Safe Harbor Presbyterian Church offering Safe Harbor to Lighthouse Christian Academy and partnering with them in the ministry of Christian education in Maryland. Father, Mr. Bell being the head of school there, newly, I believe that he's in his end of first year and looking to, moving in and really cementing himself there as the superintendent, having moved his family now to a closer location to the school. Lord, I ask for years of blessing under his leadership there at Lighthouse Christian Academy. And I ask that you would, in this time of movement, in this time of the general upheaval which comes with actually moving somewhere, I ask that you bless him and his family. Lord, we love you. We thank you for what Lighthouse is doing. We thank you for what you are doing in Christian schools, not only in Maryland, of course, as we've heard from Miss Dant this evening, but also around the U.S. and around the world. We love you. Amen.
Amen.
All right, everybody. Thanks for growing with us today.
We want to thank you for listening. We're honored that you spend this time with us each week. Our heart is to bring you practical conversations and resources that really serve you as a Christian school leader. One of the best ways you can help us spread the word is by leaving us a review and sharing the podcast with other Christian school principals you're connected with. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Join the conversation and share any posts that resonate with you. Every share makes a difference in helping more leaders find encouragement and practical tools. And remember, the podcast is just one way we help. We also love serving schools through speaking and workshops. Our keynotes and sessions are designed to give you actionable strategies you can take back to your team and implement right away. If you'd like more details, just send us an email at info@christianprinciplespodcast.com. We'd love to connect. Until next time, thanks for joining us on the Christian Principles Podcast.